Good morning, good afternoon. I guess we all just had lunch. So as she said, I'm Caitlin Meyer. I work for a firm known as GeoDecisions. We're a division of Gannett Plumbing. A couple folks in the room with us is Dharma Stajlar from DCHC MPO, who was our client for this project. Sean Burke, who was our database administrator and GIS analyst on the project. And somewhere in here is Melanie Durko, who was our application developer for this project. So just jump right in here. So in case, I know not everybody here is transportation folks, so just kind of a reminder about what an MPO does. DCHC covers the entire Durham County area as well as some sections of Orange and Chatham County. And their main push is to coordinate the long-range transportation planning process. That process involves, obviously, the MPO as a coordinating role, and also includes all the local municipalities that are within their jurisdiction, as well as close coordination on the transportation side with the DOT. So a little bit about long-range transportation planning, if you're not familiar. There's three major phases that go into planning for a transportation project. The first of which is your comprehensive transportation plan. That's when you're talking 20 years out. This is initial idea about, hey, there's a lot of congestion in this area, or there's new development happening, and I think we're going to need a new road to accommodate that. Initial idea inception. Then you're going to move into, if you are within that MPO area, metropolitan area within the state, you're going to move into the MTP process. And that process, you're looking 10 plus years out, 12 years out at that point. And then once those are taken care of, you then move on to the state level transportation improvement program, which is where something actually gets funded. So, and as part of that TIP funding process, you have to validate that those projects were part of an earlier planning phase. So it's not just Joe Smo comes up with an idea, gets on the statewide transportation improvement plan. You got to put some thought into it, and it's got to be in the planning route all the way up the line. So as part of that, MPOs are required to share this information publicly as public organizations. So as part of our project with them, there were two main goals that we wanted to focus on. First, to provide that transparency into the transportation planning process and the funding. So where did this initial nugget of an idea happen? How did it get passed through, and how did it eventually get funded? Did we need to break it up into certain projects so it's scored better at the state level? Did we need to combine projects so that they had the magnitude needed to score well and get that funding moving forward? And then the other thing that we were looking at was the ability to actually really track these projects in an organized fashion from that CTP, the MTP, and then the TIP. So previous state, and this is the case in a lot of MPOs, there's different folks doing the CTP, different folks doing the MTP, and different folks doing the TIP. And the systems that are generating those could be Excel files, could be keeping it in your GIS, but they weren't connected previously, so there was no unique identifier that could tell you this was the initial project idea, and this relates to this TIP project that actually got built down the road. So, DCHC, you saw Jermis's presentation this morning, you saw a quick glimpse of their current application, but they had some current wins with their current app. They were publishing out the public-facing information. That application also provided a user interface for their administrator within the office to go in and edit the data, so things change as part of the STIP with each new 2-year phase that comes on. They need to be able to take that data they're getting from the DOT and update it. So the current application allows them to do that for all of those TIP projects without having to be a database professional and go in and edit the records. They provided a UI to be able to do that. So, but there are some limits with the current system that they have. They were publicizing the MTP and CTP data via future services, but you kind of had to like dig on their website to find them. And they also weren't integrated with the TIP data. So there was no way even spatially to overlay those things and see for a particular segment of road what the projects were for that segment of road over time. Also, the current map interface had some limited functionality. You could identify on it, view a couple more details via your identify tool, but you couldn't necessarily drill all the way into all the project details. Additionally, they were experiencing a lot of general slowness within the application that we'll talk about. And also, just the way that they were maintaining the data across these programs was slightly different. Some of the information was in Excel, some was in shapefiles, some was in, the greater CTP document that's 40 pages and an appendix, so it was kind of scattered all over the place. And initially, the development of this application kind of grew over time, and they were having increased maintenance costs over time that they wanted to address. So that's where we came in. We had been talking to DCHC for some time about how we could work together. And we started kind of like an initial evaluation. We went in for an afternoon and kind of did like a deep dive session with them to talk about, well, what are your goals? What are you trying to do with your application? And came back with some recommendations, which eventually became phase 1 of our project. We started in August 2018, and you'll see listed there kind of the general scope. First, we wanted to address some of those performance problems that they had been having. Just from the map taking a long time to load, excessive logouts, those sorts of things. And then the main hunk of the work was really integrating that data. So the CTP and the MTP data, we needed to get that in and related in an organized fashion to establish that unique identifier across the process. And then once we had the new data in there, we needed to expose that in the UI and also give the administration functionality for those couple pieces. And also flip out the mapping interface for some newer technology that gave us some more out-of-the-box functionality. So just a quick note on our task 1. So we started the project in August. We had our fix identified for what the slowness problem was. It ended up being relatively simple. There was really one simple complex query that was executing every time you tried to click a project, so it was slowing down the whole app. So we just had to implement a new true-false statement, and we were good. It was fixed. But then when we went to actually move this into production, we discovered that we had made a mistake. So first, lesson learned for our side was make sure you have the latest copy of the code. We ended up having to hunt down the old vendor that had worked on the application because they never actually delivered the final code to DCHC. So even though it was not major things, there was just some minor bug fixes that were different between the two apps. When we went to go to prod, we're like, oh junk, we've got regression testing issues. So luckily we were able to identify those before we merged into production. But instead of getting it delivered in September, it was October. Lesson learned for everybody. Make sure you're extra clear that you have the latest code before you start working. Usually that's an assumption, but I learned not to operate on assumptions. So, the current setup, just to kind of review before I talk about what we ended up doing. You'll see here we had information in different places. All the tip data was being managed through the tip database that was already established, but the MTP and CTP data was being maintained in shapefiles. Those shapefiles also had what should have been a one-to-one match with what was in their Excel files, but there were some discrepancies in terms of what the attributes were. They were a little bit different. Some had an identifier on it that didn't match with an identifier in their Excel document, so there were some issues there. So additional kind of limitations, we talked about the data silos all being maintained in different places. CTP and MTP were not part of the application. There were different people doing it. The actual work then were actually keeping the data updated in the system. Andy, who's the guy who was doing MTP and CTP, would have to update this stuff, send it over to Dermis. Dermis had to publish it online. And that was for any time there was a little tweak. So we wanted to give him the ability to do that on his own. No unique identifiers. And also those feature services that were being published for MTP and CTP weren't organized in a way where a user could go in and see it all at once. So I'm going to pass it over to Sean to talk about what we actually did to meet these goals and give you a quick demo of the application.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Yep.
All right. So basically, and I'll try not to repeat too much of what she said. There's some overlap there. But so some of the main goals we were trying to accomplish when we came in and we're redesigning the database, we wanted to incorporate the CTP and MTP data. The data was there, and it was in all these different formats. What we had to do is we had to take it, mash it up. We got into the database, and we were able to make a lot of matches just based on common attributes, based on roads, some spatial queries. We were able to get about a 90% match rate there. We still had to do some manual matching and some additional mapping of some of the projects. But all in all, we were able to do a fairly good job of bringing that data in. Then in order to do, once we did that, sorry, hold on a second. We wanted to go ahead and create our unique IDs so that this problem could be alleviated in the future. That way, when we're moving forward and we're trying to create our relationships, all these IDs are one-to-one and one-to-many, and there's no overlap and no confusion. We wanted to prevent this problem in the future, so we implemented a lot of data checks in the database as well as the application with foreign keys, stuff like that within the database, and then everything that was inserted through the data or through the UI was also checked to make sure an ID was present. And then we also wanted to reduce the amount of redundant data editing and data points, so we pushed everything through one database and then onto the next database. So another way we were trying to do this, we wanted to create it within the TIP environment. We thought the database setup for that was pretty excellent. They were comfortable with it. They were good with it. So we wanted to incorporate the CTP and MTP data into that environment, as opposed to completely recreating something. We wanted to enhance the mapping interface. It was considerably smaller on the old UI. We wanted it to be more front and center. We wanted to have more interaction between the application and the map. We wanted to be able to manage and edit all data or all project types in the UI. So CTP, MTP, and TIP all in the same UI. And we wanted to get more data out there for the public. So and not only that, we wanted to get more data, but we wanted to get a higher quality data, so more in-depth stuff. So what we created was we created this new environment. Everything starts out in the TIP application database, which is obviously not just a TIP application now. It is MTP, CTP, but we'll ride with TIP application for now. So we start there. We're creating our projects. We're still editing our shape files externally. They're not editing those in the SDE or anything. And they're coming from multiple different people. So we're bringing the MTP and CTP into the TIP application database. It's all getting spun up there, combined with everything, and then it's moving over to your GIS database, just based on some stored procedures that are executed upon data insert, and immediately transferred to GIS database and into the REST services, which then are pumped back around into the TIP application and consumed so that they can interact that way. So the moment you all have been waiting for, we do have a little live demo just to show it. Oh, we skipped that slide. Oh, wait. Why are we... There we go. Well, that's going to make it hard. All right. All right. So, as you see, this is what we open up to. It's a very map-oriented, map-centric application. It's got a lot of the features that you would see in your traditional, Esri map. But so you've got your legend and your visibility toggles. We do have the ability here. We've got our tabs that can filter through all your project types. So you can, if you only want to focus on this MTP or CTP, you can toggle through there. We've got our search queries here. You can go through, you can search for any query, any phrase, trying to, find what you're looking for, and that'll hit all your project types. So, what I'll do here is I'll just search for I-40 because we all know they're always doing work there. So here's your TIP results, your MTP results, your CTP results. We've got our zoom to project, which will take you there on the map, assuming it's mapped. We do have, I can't see where to go. There we go. You see here, there's no zoom to project on these maps. A lot of these projects aren't mapped, either just based on still trying to accomplish that. Additionally, there's also projects that aren't mapped. And so they were tricky to incorporate in here because there's projects that they budget, such as, bus purchases or other things that they have to be allocated for, but they're not necessarily a mappable object. So we had to incorporate it into some of those. So that disappears when there is no mapped option. Once you zoom to project, you have your typical pop-up windows and here you can do this either way. Once you map to it, you can either hit this view more details button, or you can go over here. Takes you the same place, but this is where your UI becomes your editing version. So here you can immediately see right off bat your links to your MTP projects. Take you there where you can view all the information for what MTP it was. When it was in the CTP phase, you can quickly view it all there. So once you come back, we have this right now you're viewing it all as John Q Public. But say you're one of the application users, you need to go edit it. And so you need to view as administrator, which will give you a few, what's that?
You pre-logged in.
I did. I cheated. Sorry. Then so there you have your ability to edit and things like that. So you can come in, do whatever.
We also implemented some additional drop-down functionality just to eliminate some of finger flow data entry errors.
Yeah, anything that we could put into a domain or anything that we could prevent any data entry errors or anything like that, we try to do so. And we do have a phase 2 coming up, and hopefully to implement more of those where they, as they find things. We couldn't catch everything off bat, but hopefully as they use it, they say, oh, we need something here. So I'm just going to walk through, create one real quick. I can't see much, so you have to bear with me. Just run through.
So what he's doing is establishing the record within the database, and then the next step is to establish that geometry.
You come down. You got your one-to-many relationships with your TIP projects and your CTP, and those only give you the options for projects that exist. Again, another data entry, error prevention method. All right, so that's been saved. You see all the edits that took place. What we're going to do is we are going to go in here to the import MTP. And I have to it's over here. Drag my zip file in. Did that come in? All right. So what we have here is there's actually 3 records in my shapefile. One of which is not in the database at all, and that's going to show up in red right here. So that one's I've labeled gonna fail. This 69.21, this exists and has geometry already established in the database. So this comes up blue. What the blue signifies is that you're about to overwrite the record, and all the data will be overwritten. The white signifies that the project is there, you're good to go, it doesn't have any geometry, and it's going to be inserted. So once we submit that, it takes a couple seconds to do a little bit of the data spinning, especially on a little latency of conference Wi-Fi and all that fun stuff. So and we'll go back to the home page and go to the MTP, and you'll see we have a large shapefile there. Click on it, you'll see that was our NCGIS 2019. All that stuff, and you realize, oh crap, I forgot to do something. So you're going back here, you want to edit it here. And you want to go to this, you forgot to put some of the details on it from the extent, and then you're going to put from I-40 to I-85. All right. And you're going to save and submit that. Yeah. And you'll see it's populated there now. So, and that's pretty much it as far as the demo goes. Thank you.
Quick round of applause. Having to do it without on a trackpad and having to look up at the screen without glasses. I'm impressed. All right, let me see if I can figure out how to reopen this. All right, so this is the initial phase. We're probably going to go live next week into production. Wanted to keep things stable throughout the conference period here. And we're currently working on getting phase 2 and phase 3 started. We're looking at starting that next month. Couple of cool things coming with that is a pre-spot scoring tool to be able to establish their own business rules and run these projects against different algorithms to see how they might potentially score, so that they can strategically put in what projects they want to actually get funded. Additionally, we're looking at doing some integration to help out the local planning partners. Right now, when they have project IDs, it's a whole lot of back and forth via email, sending Excel spreadsheets back and forth. So we're going to make that into a web-based form system. We did something very similar for Miami-Dade MPO. That's the screenshot you're seeing up here. Also potentially give them access to some additional reports through user management. And also the biggie that's going to be helpful is to add some additional dynamic querying capabilities so they can build their own. I want every road that's been planned that's over 3 lanes. They can develop that query and execute it and get that back down. So we're looking to start that in the next month or so.